Are you wondering about the proposed property tax removal here in the state of Florida? Well, here, if you look at the question here from our friend of mine, Sheila, she asked that question. It's a good question. What do I think and what do we feel that will happen with the proposed amendment of removing property tax? Well, I put up some stats behind me, so I have some monitors and I'm reading from live information. But this was back in March. This was proposed actually earlier in the year, but it hasn't been spoken about since. It's kind of just taken a backstop. Currently, it does still need 60% approval for this to be an amendment to go through. It doesn't look like it has any headway yet, but there's so many different variables that happens. What do you do to replace that income? Considering Florida, these are live stats here, that 66% of Floridians are homeowners and the other 34% renting. Well, where do you get the revenue from and how do you support that? Well, one of the revenues is increasing the sales tax. Now, we know we have no income tax here in Florida, but we have a sales tax, and there are 15 other states that have higher sales tax than we do. Well, what would they do to increase the sales tax? Well, if they increase the sales tax, that would have a big effect on those who are renters, because now they're going to be contributing to make up that deficit. They're going to have to contribute to a higher sales tax in whatever purchases they make. So that's one of the stepping stones of what do you do to replace that revenue. So what else does that mean? Well, if Florida had to do that, it would actually make it the highest taxed state in the country. It would generate over $40 billion in revenue, but it would make it the highest tax state. And then what will happen to home prices? What would happen to people who want to buy a property here? Yeah, people come here for the tax haven, not having state tax. There's a Homestead Act for your homes. But I don't think people will increase the pricing of their homes if there was no tax on it. I think what will happen is if you have a higher sales tax and people buy the goods and services, which, once you pay off your home, I get it. You have property that you're just paying to live in it. But that's for the services of the police and the municipalities and all. What do you do with the sales tax? That will never go away. You still have to eat. You still have to buy a car. You still have to do other things, discretionary spending. So it becomes the highest price state in the country with income tax, or excuse me, with sales tax. Why would you want to live here? So it doesn't all make sense. It doesn't line up, but I'm sure there'll be a lot more conversation behind this. So my thought right now is being that it's still there, 6% vote it's needed, 60% vote is needed in order for that to pass. I don't think it'll pass because I think, the population that rents and the people who are, middle class or lower middle class won't be able to afford to live here if everything, their daily foods and services, they got to pay twice as much for sales tax on that. Think about it, especially if they're getting subsidized dollars, that dollars go less. So in theory, it sounds great, but when you look at it overall, the impact, I think, is going to be too large for South Florida. We have a lot of positive things, but I think eliminating that would be probably one of the most difficult things for them to do. Now, they want to do some rebates on homeowners tax. Yes, I can see that doing maybe some short numbers, some little numbers that'll help, but I don't think the housing market's going to change or swing tremendously up or down if they eliminated that property tax. I think people have realized now after COVID that the prices that they had were so inflated that now we're kind of having a little bit of correction. Now I'm looking at here in South Florida, can't speak up for the whole country, in immediate, even in the micro environment of South Florida, houses are on the market about 3 months now. A few years ago, you couldn't even touch a house in 6 days, 5 days. There's no bidding wars generally in the micro environment that I'm speaking about. So to answer your question, I think right now things will hold steady. I don't think prices will change. If that happens, I don't even think that will happen. The impact is too grand, and the alternative to make up that money just wouldn't make sense for the average Floridian. I hope that answers your question.